Hey, have you ever felt imposter syndrome? Well, right now in 2026, that condition is crippling millions of people who want to buy a home. I mean, come on, if you listen to what people are saying, then the only people out there that are buying homes, they've either got giant down payments or gifts from their parents. So people who used to have hopes of home ownership, well, now they feel like it's a pipe dream and they decide that they're just fooling themselves. The interview you're about to hear is Sergio and Ali. They reached out to me a couple years ago when it was still really tough to buy a home, and they were completely at that time able to safely and responsibly buy a house. They could get out of their high rent situation like tomorrow, but they just couldn't see it. They felt like they were years away and they were discouraged by the housing market. So I sent them some information so that they could educate themselves, look at it on their own time, and they could see all their options. But the fact that they had been so misinformed and discouraged, it really stuck with me. Kind of pissed me off, to tell you the truth. More people should be able to know that there's a way to do this. So what I did was I actually used their situation as an example, and I recorded an entire episode, talked about them, because I wanted other people to see how many options were actually available, and still people were feeling like they had no shot. Now, I changed their name in the episode. I called them Bob, and because I couldn't think of a name for her, I just called her Bobette. That was episode 276, where I explained that their imposter syndrome was so ridiculously unfounded. They were so ready, and at the very least, they should have been talking to a real estate support team as soon as possible so they can get the real information on all their options. Turns out they did just that, and 5 months later, they got the keys to their home. Well, now they've agreed to reveal their true identities and share their story. It's an incredible ending to the original question from people who don't think that they're ready. They learned so much along the way, and you're going to get so much out of this. In fact, there was so much good stuff that came out that stay tuned to the end of the episode, because after we turned the mics off, we were just chatting a little bit, and then they said something else, and I said, nope, that needs to be in the podcast. So you get a bonus clip at the end. Enjoy.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
From episode 276, Bob and Bobette. You may know the story. You may remember that I cussed them out at the end of the episode. Bob and Bobette are actually Sergio and Ali, and we had so many conversations about helping them figure out what to do to get started. And now, as of March 28th, I believe was the date I have, they are homeowners. So they've agreed to come on the show. So hello, Sergio and Ali. How are you?
Hey there, doing good. Thanks for having us.
So are you famous with all your friends and family as Bob and Bobette?
Oh, absolutely. We put this on blast in all the text threads.
Excellent. Okay. We'll get into your story a little bit, but first let's give the homies something that they can digest and use as a morsel and a nugget to help them. What was your biggest aha moment going through the home buying process?
For me, it's you need a unicorn realtor. Just full stop right there. You need a realtor that will advocate for you. You need a realtor that will even be a marriage counselor at times for you, navigating discussions. You need a realtor that is willing to go to houses when you're not in the city, take videos, video call you. You need a realtor that is willing to go above and beyond, especially in one of the biggest purchases of your life, one of the biggest transactions of your life. To do this alone, I'm a very independent person. It would have been crazy to do this alone, or to do this with a realtor that doesn't really know their stuff very much. And so just for me, the biggest aha was, holy crap, these people are professionals. These people they know what they're doing, especially if you get a correct one, and they're going to help you along the entire way.
Ali, I'm going to get to you. I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize is a true professional gives you all that time and attention, but we have systems to do it. There's an organization to the process. And whereas a lot of new agents that maybe have a lot of time, but they don't have the systems in place to know how and when and what to do. So people think, I can't use that person. They're too experienced. Well, if they tell you they have systems to work with a first-time home buyer, you should get the full unicorn feel. Now, what about you, Ali? What was your biggest aha?
I think kind of piggybacking off of that, our realtor was amazing at kind of like giving us the lay of the land, a step-by-step process So I didn't feel like this huge nebulous beast of a thing that we were tackling. It was little bite-sized nuggets. And I think the biggest aha moment was when we kind of made that financial plan of, okay, this is what we need to set aside. This is how we're going to do it. And this is the time frame. I think it was huge in achieving our goal.
That's incredible. Well, let's go back and tell everyone the story. So Sergio reached out to me, and I'm going to say on behalf of Sergio and Ali, because since you mentioned marriage counselor in the unicorn, and I don't know if you were both getting the email, but for me, I just saw Sergio. So it was October of 2024, and he had a bunch of questions. The long story short is, if you listen to episode 276, you'll hear that they were more than ready, way more than ready. And it was great because it was validation of why I have started this podcast, to get the message out there, to let people know they're probably more ready than they are. But my favorite part of the whole story was the fact that, they had, a $35,000 saved. We've had people on the show who have bought a home with $4,000 closing costs. Their home was like 400-ish grand. And we've had people buy $3,000 and $350,000 homes with $4,000, $6,000, $8,000. So the 35 was plenty. They were in a position where there was a job transition, so we talked a lot about that. Probably why the unicorn being able to do things while they were out of town was so essential for you guys, because it was a transfer out to a new place. But I talk a lot about debt to income ratio, your DTI. Now, your DTI can be, the conservative people are going to tell you wanted about 30%. But if you're trying to buy a home with a rent replacement strategy, you've got to be looking at potentially a 45%. Some of them will allow you up to 50%. Bob and Bobette, DTI of 6.8% when they reached out to me saying, so we're thinking, after the job transfer, maybe by like next year or later. So in my initial conversations to both of you, how did the mindset shift go when I responded to you? And then most importantly, did you hate me because I was so goofy with you guys going, what the hell? Call somebody.
I don't know. I'm a very positive person, I guess. I like to manifest things. I like to say things out loud and say that they're going to happen. And, to answer your question, it was in September. I came down to Austin. We lived in Dallas. I was laying in the lake in Austin, and I was just like, man, why the heck am I not here? And we got out of the lake, and I told Ali, I was like, let's move to Austin, let's buy a house. I had just talked to my friend who had purchased a home. We compared figures of what it looked like for her. And you had warned your user or our fellow homies, don't go off of other people. But that's kind of what made me start thinking, okay, if she could do it, why can't I do this? What are my thought processes behind me that are keeping me from being able to do this? And so I told her, and she's like, yeah, okay. Listen to your podcast for exactly a month. This was September 14th, and then October 14th, I reached out to you. And It was just every day I would talk to her, and she was like, all right, yep, what did Sidoni teach you today? And I'm like, oh man, we need a unicorn today, babe. And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? But I knew that we were in a financial position where we could do something, but we were always under the impression that we needed 20% down for the PMI. That we didn't want to mess with our lifestyle, but we don't make a whole bunch, but we make enough to be comfortable, right? To have a good meal every once in a while. And when you message back, it was, you have this much for rent, this much for your bills. There's 10 grand sitting there on a month-to-month basis. What are you doing with that 10 grand? You're not eating lobster and filet mignon every day. And I'm like, no, I'm not. But, through other financial gurus and stuff, it's like, okay, invest in 401k, invest in IRA. And this is where the diversification of the portfolio came in. And it was like, okay, we can look at this house as an asset. We can look at this house as another item in our financial plan. And I told Ali, and that's when I reached out to you. And there was zero animosity at all. I was so stoked that you were real, that you reached out to me, you texted me. It was just a very surreal moment where I just needed that kind of push that, no, this is possible. You tell me after every episode you can do this. But that message that I received from you of, dude, what are you doing? Just save money and we can get there. It just made it made a complex nebulous clouds have a good first step. And indeed, we were able to save about $4,000 a month for the following 4 or 5 months. And then we were able to purchase a home.
Somewhere in the middle there is like 30 seconds that I'm going to cut out and use forever, because your transition of thinking, which had nothing to do with the sales pitch from anybody, it was just me helping you shift your mindset to the diversification of a portfolio. Some of you out there might be thinking, well, good for Bob and Bobette that they got 10 grand extra a month. Maybe you have $1,000 extra a month. The point that Sergio said so eloquently is that in today's society, you're going to be paying high rents for a long time. So a home is an extra asset. It's not taking away from your retirement. It's actually adding, especially we consider how much that you would spend on rent. Ali, where were you in the beginning of this? Yeah, I can't tell you how many partners are like, really, Sidoni again? I hear that all the time. So where were you in the beginning? And, you were thinking about a job transfer. Tell us about that too.
So I think that, as Serge described, it was very much just like a light switch moment for him where he was like, I want to move to Austin and we're going to get it done. I don't know how. And then I started hearing your name. Sidoni says this, Sidoni says that. And I'm like, who the heck is this guy? And how the heck are we going to make this happen? And it was a challenge for many reasons. It was going to require a job change on my behalf. It was taking a huge mindset shift. And I admittedly was not listening to your podcast on the daily as Serge was. And, I think that it took me more time to get to his level. But yeah, I think I just kind of warmed up to the idea again as I started seeing that stepwise plan of, okay, this is what our financials look like. This is the plan forward. Oh yeah, we do have an extra, chunk of money we can set aside.
Yeah, I really wish that I could explain the finances in a 30-second video, but it's a lot. And so it takes the dedication / the little craziness of Serge and people like him to get that detailed and listen to it. So it is a great story to know that, hey, I was in a lake and decided this city's bitchin', I want to move here. But there were some real factual, practical dynamics that had to happen for you guys. What were your first steps, considering you were thinking about moving to another neighborhood? Or another town? What did you do to continue to research that? And when did you get your unicorn team involved?
Yeah. We're fortunate to have some friends that live in the Austin area. So we've had a few opportunities to kind of scope it out a little bit. So once we decided that we wanted to move and buy, we started going and literally just driving around neighborhoods that our friends had recommended or that we had interest in based on our research. And then I guess once we got a little bit further in that process, that's when we reached out to our realtor.
Yeah. David contacted us. Yeah.
Yeah. And he really helped kind of steer us, towards what neighborhoods we really should be looking at based off of our needs and wants. So that was hugely helpful. Our realtor is a native Austinite, and so he really knows all his stuff about, where the cool kids want to be these days and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know if we would have ended up in the pocket that we did without his help. It was very much an organic process.
And a couple of the obstacles that we have some contractual obstacles. For one, rent. Our rent was over, I believe it was March 26th of this year. And then Ali had signed a 2-year commitment or 1-year commitment with her job, and that was until June 30th. And so trying to come up with a rent replacement strategy with the realtor, huge, right? What does that look like? Contact the leasing office. How much would it cost for you to break that early? How much can you go month to month? Can you go week to week afterwards? What are your scenarios with that? So making those phone calls, and then also having a tough conversation with your boss, right? Of what does it look like to leave a couple months early because we need to move to Austin. And it was just really getting those answers and doing that type of work. But a lot of that was with the help of our realtor and kind of guiding us along those ways of what conversations to have and when.
So not only did you get, fiscal information, obviously from your lending side, but from the realtor side, because we deal with this type of stuff as well, you were getting, those are some in-depth conversations. It never hurts. The worst I can do is say no. But so did you actually achieve some flexibility in the leasing and the job? Or did you just say screw it and decide to move and close in March anyway?
A little bit of both, honestly. With the lease situation, it could have been flexible if we wanted to be, but interestingly enough, we found that we could actually move up the date a little bit because we wanted to. We were saving more than we thought we were going to be able to, just because we were motivated. So yeah, our timeline sped up quite significantly.
Yeah, we definitely fall in your statistic of, 73% of your of homies are underneath. Think that it's a year. This was October and we were able to close in March. So what, 5.5 months of
Yep.
Just end-to-end process of all of this. But yeah, we were definitely, our original plan when we spoke to the realtor, not trying to cut our lifestyle or anything like that, was putting us in September, October. But I was still hearing you every single day, right? You were singing to me in my ear holes. And it was, you need to get there before March. I think you said maybe April. I forget what it was, but this was around December, January, February, now,
Yep.
right? And so that kind of kicked us a little bit into high gear of, all right, like what is the worst case? And we found ourselves in a very fortunate situation where I think our lease was up the 27th and we were closing the 28th, which is unheard of, right? Which is just perfect. But even with that, we decided to give us an extra 2 weeks. And so we talked to the leasing company of our of our apartment, and they gave us an extra 2 weeks prorated. We were able to just pay those 2 weeks just to have a more relaxed move. We didn't know what that was going to look like and signing and getting the clear to go into the house and everything and the keys. So they gave us those 2 weeks, but it was worth it 100% because we set ourselves up for this scenario. We went over this with our realtor and our lender.
All the time that I've been doing this, I don't think I've ever had anybody tell me about the 2 week. I know about it, but it's such a great tip to go ahead and ask. And the combination between talking to a unicorn realtor who's done this for hundreds of different first-time home buyers, the interesting thing is you can do 100 different transactions with a first-time home buyer and have 100 different stories, tips, and techniques. So it's not like we're repeating the same stuff over and over again. We're learning and we're continually finding things because landlords and leasing companies change their policies and procedures all the time. Jobs. You think buying a home in 2019 or 2021 was the same pre-pandemic and post? Everything changes. Going back and forth between cities, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but what do you think were with that aspect of buying someplace else? As well as everything else, what were the biggest fears or misconceptions, or were there any things where you were like, oh, this was easier than I thought, or I shouldn't have been afraid of that? Kind of a loaded question.
We definitely touched on this already, but we were under the impression we needed to have 20% down, and we were far, far from it. So one of the things that we learned was just the difference in having 3%, 5%, 10%, 20% down and how that changes your PMI and all of that. And that was really, I'm going to say life-changing for us, because then it didn't feel like this really scary thing where we needed to save for another 5,000 years to then get a house. So I think that was
Are you sure you don't listen to the podcast? Because that 5,000 year exaggeration sounds like me.
Maybe I listened to a few.
But that point is, I totally agree with that point, because when you're touching on prices of homes, for example, or deciding to save an extra 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever, you don't realize when you're doing this big of a purchase, you can go a whole month or two trying to save an extra $1,000 just to put down on the down payment. And then you see what that does to your monthly payment. And you're like, oh, $10.
Nothing.
Oh, $11, $9, right? But the thresholds that do change, at least I'm not sure if it's nationwide or in Texas, is that PMI, that 3%, that 5%, and that 10%. You're going to have PMI in all of them, but they're brackets basically. So between 3 to 4.999, it's going to be this much PMI. And then 5 to 9.999, it's going to be this much. And so we were debating the 3%, but then we saw if we just get to the 5%, in this case, it is a few grand, which when you look at the monthly payment, is only a few dollars. But when you look at the PMI difference, that was, I think, more than $80 a month or something like that we were going to save on PMI just from going to 3 to 5%. So really, the difference between just down payment for monthly payments and then the down payment in terms of PMI can have a big impact. Hopefully I said that right.
No, you totally did. And it's so fun because like being in this for 20 years and doing this in Southern California and having to, be rubber band man and bend over backwards to try to help people because, the affordable home is right now $750,000. So, I've been doing it when I first started, we're $400,000, but that was insane back then when I first started. But because of that creativity, I've been saying this forever, and now I'm starting to see all these real estate people come out with, the advantages of a low down payment option, keeping your cash and paying PMI. But the technical part that you touched on, Serge, is so important because where you're looking at the differences between the 3% versus the 5% versus maybe even an 8% down payment if it adjusts your PMI that much. And again, your PMI also is going to be on your credit score. PMI is hugely attached to credit score. So if you can jump one of those 20-point tiers from 680 to 700 or from 740 to 760, that's going to lower your PMI as well. Okay, I already asked you guys about where you found the podcast. You walked out of a lake and put on your headphones. I got it. The question I always ask people is did you buy sooner than you thought, and were you uncomfortable with that feeling? I think we know the answer to that. At what point along the way when you were searching, was it in the reassurance that you could find the neighborhood you wanted for? Was that more reassuring, or was it, we can financially do this? Were you just following Sergio's, we can do anything and just going for it?
I'm definitely more of the pessimist out of the two of us. So I think the voice of reason is really what I would like to say sometimes. But I think that we got to a point where I understood that, yes, financially we can do this. I think the moment where I was like, okay, this is good, is when we started going and actually looking at homes and neighborhoods that we could afford and seeing what that would afford us exactly. That's when it started becoming real to me, so to speak. Because before it's just okay, we have this number we're trying to hit. Okay, yeah, we want to live in this super cool place called Austin. But where in Austin is this going to be? What type of house is this going to get us? We also had some really interesting discussions. We found out that we have Serge and I have different definitions of what a quote fixer-upper is. So, his was very much a more what I would look at as pretty dilapidated tear-down situation. And then for me, it's okay, we need to do, the floors and, maybe move a door, simple stuff like that. So that was very interesting to go through with him as well.
Oh, I love a good fixer-upper, but, I think that's where the marriage counseling portion of the realtor comes in, right? And why you need a unicorn is he was able to managed that conversation very professionally. You know, it was like, well, let's define what this means to you. What does sweat equity means to you? And we found out, Ali, we're moving to a new city. It's our first home. I want to at least feel comfortable sleeping inside of the house and not being any creepy doors.
Go figure.
Or like did we check for ghosts? That kind of house. And I was all like, let's tear it all down. Let's break down these walls. And our realtor was able to be like, all right, Serge, I respect that. But at the same time, you are a first time buyer. Let's get you something, a little bit more appropriate for where you're at. Maybe we can look at this as a second property. Still respecting what I wanted though. And at the same time, managing Allie's kind of, you weren't full on, it needs to be perfect, pristine turnkey, but
no,
just finding that balance between us. Realistic.
Understanding what I know about Allie so far in our conversation here, I'm guessing she wasn't scared of ghosts, but maybe she was scared that the pipes would burst and your home would flood while she was asleep.
Absolutely.
You brought up two things there, Allie. For people who are moving to someplace else, or for people who are doing all their home shopping, window shopping on Zillow, the fact that you got to have these discussions because you were in a home, not looking at a picture. And you could go, that's not going to work, and point over there and say, that's a huge factor, which is why I feel so many people don't start early enough, because if you're with a unicorn realtor who's like, hey, we don't have the money right now, but we can go look at a few homes once a month. Mm-hmm. You could start to learn those things, and the marriage counseling or the sudden realization that marriage counseling needs to happen can help move things along. And it's true, we have to bring two brains in. Talk to me about how the neighborhoods shopping long distance, the difference and the tips and the tricks that you got driving through the towns, Allie. Like, was it driving through the places? Was it looking at the shops? Or was it walking into the homes and looking at the neighborhoods? What part of that boots on the ground thing really tipped the scale for you?
Yeah, I think that more than anything, they always say, you can change how the house looks, but you can't change its location, right? It's planted where it's planted. So I think for me, it was very big, me coming from a metropolitan area that Dallas is, to have all my creature comforts that I want nearby, as well as one of the reasons we were wanting to move to Austin was because of all the fun outdoor stuff that's going on. So it was really important that we kind of nailed those pieces down, and that really eliminated a large portion of the market that was affordable for us. So then it was like, okay, so based off of those needs, now we go and kind of look at the neighborhoods that are still in our price point and see, from an aesthetics point of view and just, livability and whatever, what are we vibing with?
Being there obviously creates a different vibe. I mean, there's a difference between looking at something on Instagram or looking at something on the internet and, being there and putting it on your Instagram stories. You can tell a lot more when you're there.
Absolutely.
Did you and Sergio have a plan of attack? You mentioned talking to your friends. Did you guys do a lot of exploration time? Did you go try some of the outdoor places that you were looking at, or did you just drive around and find them?
Yeah, absolutely. We came down and would say probably maybe 4 different weekends and stayed with friends. And we did the whole drive around with our friends for a little bit. Hey guys, what do y'all think is cool around here? What do you guys like to do? And then Serge and I went and did our solo drives where we went and looked at, some things that I found online. Before our trips, we would kind of make a game plan hey, we want to go hang with our friends, but this is also a business trip. So we need to, plan the times of day that we need to go see things. And I think it was really helpful to get, both the insight of our friends and our unicorn realtor. Yeah, I think that was key.
I think it's a great point. Write that down if you're someone moving to a new area. Make trips with friends and family, but keep it a business trip too. What about you, Sergio? What was the boots on the ground experience like for you?
Exhausting.
Yeah,
I am a person that I need a specific thing. I will go to my specific shop where I know they have specific thing. I will go to the aisle, grab it, and then check out. Allie is not condoning this behavior, but let's buy 5 of the same thing in different sizes or different colors and return 4 and keep the one that I like. And I am patient. And sometimes I'll return all 5. So just touring more, after the third house, they just started looking the same to me. And I was just at the point where I was like, whatever the wife wants, whatever. But, that's not a good attitude to have. This is a very serious transaction, And so even though you're exhausted, even though you don't want to look at another home, this is where you're going to be planted for a few years, right? And so you want to make sure that it fits really well. But a big tip that I have for the fellow homies is to keep your filters less strict than you think. If you're on Redfin, if you're on Zillow and you're putting 3-2,
yes,
whatever other, no HOA or whatever, needs a pool and these things, you really don't know what you don't know. This is the first time you're purchasing a home. You think you know what you want, and you're probably 80% right, but there's a lot of things that you don't really know. It was thanks to Ali keeping an open mind and continuing these things that I think we were even able to purchase or find the home that we found and find the one that we really, really like. And the way that went down is our realtor set us up with an MLS login. And so we were able to find houses through that. And we would get daily updates of new properties come in. And it came to the point after our 4 trips where we had basically exhausted most of our options in the area that we were interested in. And I actually hit a little bit of a low point. I was like, dang, I mean, we can afford a house, but we can't afford the house. And I was using the MLS search, which had the criteria of single family home, 3-bed, 2-bath, and I forget what other criteria.
Minimum 1,200.
Minimum 1,200 square feet. And Ali was still using Redfin, following your advice of just looking at sold homes, right? But at the same time, to get a feel for the area, to get a feel for the prices, but then would switch back to what's available, right? And what was crazy is that our house is actually registered as a standalone condominium.
Oh, God. Sorry. You have no idea how many people miss houses that are amazing for them because they use the single family only.
Yes.
And it sucks that you have to delete a million condos. But once you do it the first day, all you do is you delete a couple a day because there are tax laws that if there's any slightly commonly shared area, it has to be identified as a condominium, and each MLS has different rules about it.
And that was exactly it. The MLS search that we had with our realtor didn't have this property listed. And Ali had it on Redfin. And so on one of our trips, it was just like, I have this property. And I said, that property doesn't exist. And it was a bit of a confusion because I called the realtor. I was like, Ali sees this on Redfin. The MLS doesn't have it. And Chris, our realtor, was like, well, that's because that's considered a condominium. It's not a single family home. And we went to the property and we're like, it sure looks, smells, and feels like a single family home. Tell me it's not a single family home. And to your point, it's some administration registration that you had to put this property down like that. And so just being open to that, right? We thought that we didn't really want an HOA because it's, the rules and everything that come with it. But there's also great perks that come with the HOA, right? I really enjoy running and I enjoy my walks. And I don't want to have to avoid 20 cars parked outside of a house or, a bush or a wheat or grass is growing on the sidewalk because they're not clearing out their sidewalks, right? So there is a little bit of a balance. You do have to deal with more admin stuff, but even though we originally said no HOA, we're in a property that does have an HOA. They have yet to bother us, hopefully, knock on wood. But we are finding that we actually didn't mind the HOA as much as we did. It was just all what we heard culturally speaking of the HOA nightmares and stuff, right? And so just be open to the properties, especially if you don't live in the area. You don't know what the city's like. You don't know what the homes are going to look like.
Preach, brother, preach. It is the hardest thing for me to explain to people, and I understand, especially now in the world of social media. The negativity that comes about 20% down, I can never buy a house, I'm just going to rent forever. The negativity that comes from HOA suck, they're the worst thing ever. There is no positivity side of people just posting stuff. But I guarantee you it's 100 to 1 because the percentage of homes that, including single family homes that do have an HOA, creeps up every year. I mean, we're talking like close to 50% of everything. The world isn't without HOAs, and the world is going to be with more HOAs in the next 30 years. So sucks, but also if you're using your home as a stepping stone, so many things. Okay, I want to get into this a little bit more. I didn't know where this interview was going to go, but I want to hear your take on the inventory. But before that, I am going to take a second because there's something really weird that I noticed with you guys. Talking about the marriage counseling and how important it is. Sergio, you presented yourself as the manifest destiny guy, which I love. I'm with you, buddy. Talk to myself in the mirror all the time. And the, hey, let's go, let's do it, Mr. Positive. Yet, when it comes to living in your life, and Ali is portrayed as the practical thinker, yet when it comes to shopping for stuff, she's got the whimsy and you're Mr. Practical in and out. So that was kind of interesting. And I didn't expect that you would be the bougie one, Serge, who liked your HOA. So your neighborhood's all cute.
The Dallas rubbed off on him.
I think so.
I will tell you.
Serge and I have a relationship, so I'm allowed to rag on him a little bit.
It was very interesting, right? Because I think I rubbed off a lot from you because we would go to a neighborhood, we would go to a house that looked really pretty. And as soon as we drove up to the neighborhood, it was like, oh, the neighbor has, bunch of trash on the alleyway or whatever. Yep. And you don't see that, right? Even if you do Google Street View, sometimes those are from 3-4 years out. There's a new tenant there, whatever what the scenario is, right? And so I was starting to value. I was like, you know what? You're right. Like every time I pull up to my house, I don't necessarily want to see a pile of trash. I want to feel good. And dude, that is a bougie thought, right? Totally. I love that you're poking at that, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but bro, you could afford it. Everyone is at a different financial place in their life. There are some people, that are barely making enough to survive and have food. God bless them and keep on hustling. But if you're at a certain place in your life, you don't look down on yourself. If you can afford more than top ramen every single day and you eat more than top ramen, that's not bougie. That's just, you've worked hard to be there. And when you're buying a home, the neighborhood can be so crucial. Let's jump back now because I want to get into these tips and tactics. Boy, that inventory. One of the things I tell people all the time is if you've exhausted everything, which happens a lot the last couple of years, and then you go, I'm going to wait for more inventory. Here's a big tip. Like you said, Serge, you got to the end and you were like, well, that's it. And you hit your low point. If you have a good support team that's going to support you and you approach it to say, hey, I know we said this and we are perfectly fine to wait if it's truly inventory, but can you open up our parameters a little bit? And next Saturday, let's go look at homes. And I realize we said 3 bedrooms and you're going to show us some 2 bedrooms. We don't want to waste your time, but let's open it up for a week and just make sure that our parameters, that we're not missing anything. Because what you can find is a 2-bedroom that has a giant extra room that you could wall in. You find out, I find people all the time, how did you get for your square footage? Did you hit your square footage? Were you above it or were you below what you originally thought you wanted?
We're way above what we originally thought we wanted. We asked for 1,200 and we're like 1,750.
Yeah.
Which if I would have seen that, I would have been like, who's going to clean all that?
How did you guys do on your rent payment versus your new PITI? Obviously, you had a cushion. Was it a big monthly payment change for you guys?
So we wanted to go a little gradual. So during the negotiating process, we talked about a 2-1 buy down. And we got a credit from the seller to get this 2-1 buy down. And so what that looks like is when we came to Chris, we said we didn't really feel comfortable going above $3,250 a month. And so to kind of transition us in there from going from $2,250 basically rent, right, a whole extra grand, we actually did this 2-1 buy down. And this first year, it's the 2% down. And so we're around 26, then it'll jump to around 29, and then it'll jump back up to 3,250, 3,200, which is where we wanted to be at. And that felt really good because we're just paying about $400 extra a month on rent mortgage, right? And so it is, yeah, that was a great.
Feels comfy.
Well, since we're on the subject, get into it, Serge, because we originally talked about the job transfer being a big part of this and both of you being on the loan, but tell the story.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you want to
Go for it.
There's so we originally with the PITI that or debt to income ratio that David said at the beginning of the episode, that was including her wage. I work remote, so I'm able to go anywhere in the country and move cities. There's no issue. But with her profession, she needs to be in a specific location. And so when we were in the process of talking about this, we continued with both of us on the loan. It got to the point where they will ask, well, what's Ali going to be doing when she's down in Austin? And we said, well, we still need to find a job. And that complicated things because you need at least an offer letter, right? Sometimes you don't need the 2 years prior to. And I think you have an episode on that dropped recently.
Most of the time, you don't need the 2 years too, as long as you're taking it in the same field.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of loan you're getting, you might need a couple weeks paychecks. But Serge, you are correct. Oftentimes, you can be at one job, not even starting the next one yet, off for a couple weeks. But if you have an offer letter, it's like you've continuing the same job with the same amount of years.
And we didn't even have that offer letter with Ali. And so this was just, again, being transparent with your team. They're here for you. You are the owner of this transaction. They're working for you. And you really need to get into that mindset of, I have these 3 scenarios. I have this scenario. Sit down with your lender. You know, if they're not going to be there for an hour conversation, 30 conversation, if they can't make time for you within a couple of days, get yourself a better lender because you are trying to get to a point where you can do this. And we really worked out the numbers. And to my surprise, we didn't even have to include Ali in the loan. It's just underneath my name. She's still on the title, so it's still under both of our names. But by removing her lack of forecasted income because she has to transition out, that also took away some of her debts. The debt to income ratio is now around 18-20% just on my end once we removed her. But that still put us in a position where we could qualify. So you really don't know what your scenario is until you put everything on the table with your lender and you talk about all these scenarios.
So when you guys first thought about this and you walked out of the lake like John the Baptist and we're like, here we go.
That is how he describes it, isn't it? Flowing hair and everything.
And you said to Ali, lo, I have seen the vision. We are moving here. Did you contemplate any of these or what any of these potential options that you eventually got to with your unicorn lender and realtor? Or did you start listening to the podcast thinking we're going to have to do the big down payment, we're going to have to do both of us on the loan?
I think right off the bat, I was thinking that I was going to need to find a job prior to moving, which sounded very stressful and like a huge hiccup for us because I am very much a planner type person and I want to enjoy where I live. And so it's hard to choose a job when you don't know where you're going to live, right? You don't want to you don't want to choose a job that's, you know, an hour away that you're driving back and forth to every day. Or at least that's not what I'm trying to do.
When your unicorn realtor says, what kind of commute time are you looking for? I don't know. Exactly. I don't know where I'm going to work.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, in general, I would say the house is a longer term thing than the job, right? And so it just seemed very backwards to me to have to kind of just pick something and quickly and then do the house. So I think by posing that and then hearing like, hey, you know what? Let's run the numbers and see what it looks like with just Serge being on the loan piece. At first, I think it was a little scary and daunting for him because like that's big, you know, it's a big step. But at the end of the day, it was what made sense for us. So.
And the reason she says it's a big step, and this kind of goes before what you were talking about with some of the listeners that, you know, may not have that extra cash, is we've been together for almost 10 years now. And as of 4 or 5 years ago, less than 4 years ago, I think I was like 20 grand in credit card debt. I was working at a big box store making minimum wage. And there was no way in hell I was going to buy a house. Like how did you do that, right?
Yep.
How do you even get to that point? And together we've worked on our careers, we've worked on our skill sets, and we support each other along the way. And I'm not trying to get corny here, but it is, for me, when I heard the news of, well, we can get you approved with just you, there was a big sense of imposter syndrome. And there was a big sense of, what the hell? Like, are you sure? I have all these student loans and I had credit card debt so much. Like, I didn't even know what credit card was, what an APR was on a credit card. I didn't know any of that stuff 4 years ago, right? At 25 years old, I wasn't prepared for this. So to know, okay, now you're about to sign a 30-year commitment, which, let's face it might not be 30 years. We may be moving in 5-6 years or whatever, but still, you're going to be signing this commitment. It's going to be to your name. It was just like the biggest hit of realization. And it definitely raised the stakes. It definitely made me a little anxious, made me a little stressed. But, having the support of Ali, having the support of the realtor, of the unicorn realtor saying, this is totally doable, and then of the lender, it really just made me feel like we can do this, right? You say that after every episode, but to actually swallow that pill and tell yourself that, right? Unfortunately, sometimes you have to get into it to really believe it. But it is definitely possible. Regardless of what it is, work on yourself, get that income up, get that debt down, work on your credit score, and you can definitely get a house.
The reason why 72% of the people that say they're 12 to 18 months are under contract in 3.2 is because people over prepare because they don't feel like they can get a team that can guide them. And so a lot of times I talk about this in this big, kind of big picture thinking that, hey, Sergio, I know you've only been adulting for 4 years, but based on your numbers, I was like, oh, well, I'm going to send this dude a snarky response and go, bro, get off your ass. Let's go. But what's really neat about this is what you discovered the reason why I'm so just passionate about telling people, look at all the things you discovered along the way. From the big, we don't need both of us on the loan. Okay, that means Ali doesn't have to take a job she doesn't really like. That's huge for your life. Yeah. Then as you go down, well, what about, there's so many things that just don't come in a black or white, yes or no answer. Deciding that you're going to do a lower down payment, that's one thing. But then doing the detailed math with people to figure out, like you mentioned earlier, which is going to get, maybe a little bit more down payment, decreases the PMI, but then that means $80 a month. We have to look at that over 5 years, over 10 years, over 30 years. Is that worth $1,000 right now? That's big stuff. But you don't even get into that unless you realize you're not an imposter syndrome and you reach out and talk to somebody. So I could have talked to 2 years in adulting Sergio and maybe helped you guys plan for 12 months then.
Yeah.
But instead you guys came in over prepared. And that's such a wonderful thing because as you get into it, you realize how many little things. I mean, I know, Ali, you didn't have to take a job you don't want, but you're not freaked out about paying next month's mortgage, are you?
No, we plan for it. So it feels really good, honestly.
That's incredible. And how's Austin treating you guys?
I love it. I was pleasantly surprised.
Wait, you're the Dallas girl. You love it?
I know. Yeah. Getting out on the paddleboard, hitting trails. Yeah. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Awesome. And Lake Boy, are you enjoying it still?
Oh yeah. You can't really tell, but I am sunburned to hell because we were just at the lake this weekend and somebody forgot to apply sunscreen. But it's just gorgeous down here. I feel safe. I'm from a small town, and so just being in Dallas, even though we were in a good neighborhood, I never felt like I could go on a long walk, on a run, enjoy the outdoors, just because you're in a big city, right? And so being here in Austin, it was a great little hybrid of there's city stuff, but we are just 15 minutes from downtown, and we're in a more quieter area, I guess. There are some nightlife, because that was one of the requirements for Ali. But for me, it's just, we really did find a home, and I'm very happy with it.
That's so cool. Yeah. And it's so funny. You said a home. And in my brain, I'm going condo. Which, by the way, sometimes the builders just have to do that in order to get the permits to build their. They're like, fine, we'll call them condos. And they're like, wait, there's no connection. There's no. Is there anything else about the home buying process that you wanted to share with the homies? Because your story has been just so inspirational and frankly motivational to not just the homies, but to me. Like the fact that I was like, I'm going to record a Bob and Bobette episode. It stoked me out for the week because I just feel like a big brother who's like going, dude, you realize you can fully pull this off right now. And if you think you want a home for the next 20, 30 years of your life, like by just listening to me, you're going to make a lot of money. Like if you guys had hung out for another year or two, all the rent you would have paid, plus all the appreciation that is just going to, it's the eighth wonder of the world, baby, interest. It's just going to boop, 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 boop. So is there anything I missed?
No, I mean, I totally agree with what you said, David, that, we could have hit you up 2 years ago. Even though I wasn't making a bunch of money and I was a minimum, you could, having the tangible goal of you're doing this because you want to buy a home is way more than just this abstract, I got all this student loan debt or I got this credit card debt. What am I going to, I'll throw a little extra at it. But when you have that goal, it really starts kicking you into high gear. And we were able to save way more than we thought, right? It was just a matter of doing that. The only other tip that comes to mind, though, slightly different topic, is be prepared to have phone conversations. I know my generation doesn't really like being on the phone very much. Be prepared and also work on your organization skills and have a notepad and a section in a notebook ready where you can jot down notes, because you are going to meet a whole bunch of people. There were points in time, especially once you enter escrow and you're in the 30-day period and you're doing the inspection and everything, your title company is going to call you, your lender is going to call you, your lender's assistant is going to call you, your realtor is going to call you. Oh, now you need home insurance. Did you call the home insurance guy? You have all this laundry list and you're like, John is starting to sound like Jim, who I think is Mary's secretary, but I don't know what the heck is going on. And so have a place on your agenda or in a notebook or a spreadsheet, if you're a spreadsheet person like me, where you have name, role, and question, and really be patient with yourself, because there's times where all three of those individuals, 5 individuals, are going to call you in a spam of 4 hours because they needed this specific paper and now this is going to talk to this person. But you are the orchestrator. Your realtor is going to guide you along the way. But as soon as you hit that escrow and you put an offer in, a lot of the chips start being poured towards you, and it's on you, right? The realtor can't necessarily speak to a specific person. You need to. And so just being prepared for that, and being willing to answer those phone calls. And with those phone calls, you may feel stressed. You may feel like, who the heck are you again? What are you doing? What does the title company do? Ask the questions. Ask all of the dumb questions that you have. Again, you are the owner here. You are the boss. And sometimes the boss needs to come off as the person that knows everything. Well, in the end of it, they're working for you. You're going to pay them. So you're paying them to answer your stupid question. And that is a fantastic feeling. What period am I in? Okay, I got cleared to close. I got cleared to what? Like all of these small little steps, all of the acronyms, it gets confusing. And just ask the question. They're not going to laugh at you. They are going to answer the questions. Every single one of the interactions, from the lender to the title company to the realtor, all of them very patient and willing to answer this. And that's all due to you finding unicorn realtors, finding unicorn lenders, your lender recommending a good title company, and just being willing, again, to ask those questions, be open to them. It's the outcome is very much worth it.
For sure. And I would also say that, Serge and I were fortunate enough to, have both of us going in on buying this house. So we were able to kind of just allot some of the tasks based off of our individual strengths, right? Serge is really good at project management type stuff and loves a good chat session and asking questions. And I like to shop around. So what does that mean? He's going to be the point of contact for a lot of that kind of stuff. And then I went in shopped around for insurance and learned about what it all means and all of that kind of stuff. And so just really making sure that, you and your partner have clear roles on what it is that you want to take action on, I think was huge and kept us out of needing extra marriage counseling after.
Okay, this is going to sound weird, but I have to ask you a question. How old are you guys?
I am 28.
Serge?
I'm 29. She just turned 28, though, 9 days after we closed.
Oh, okay.
So she closed at 27.
The reason why is that I'm going to take, at some point, I'm going to take this video and go, this is the story of Sergio and Ali, and listen to what their recommendations are for when you're under contract. And I'm going to replay everything you just said. You guys touched on so many different things. There are classes in college universities right now to teach you how to have a phone call with customer service.
What?
Yep.
That's where
because
we're
the
at?
generation. Yep, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. You guys are, what are you, like early Gen Z? JT's 30, and so he calls himself a zillennial.
I love it.
Because he's cuspy.
That's how I feel.
But
Yeah.
that was huge. But man, Sergio, I wish, wherever you're listening, if you listen to all that, however you organize anything, step it up a level for when you're going to do a home. Take a YouTube tutorial on how to use a YouTube spreadsheet to be a project manager. That's why he's so good at it. My friend's a project manager. Because what you're doing, you're taking multiple people and multiple tasks and understanding what they do and how they do, and that then you'll have comfort to know who's calling you and why. And if you're a notes app person, great. At least keep a notes app and keep everything in there. But I highly recommend getting as organized as you can, because what's going to happen is it all happens in 20 days. And you need to know everybody and every piece of it. And the last thing I will, just because that was, again, stop listening to me, hit rewind and listen to that again, what you guys said. You're 100% right. You're the boss. Here's the magic phrase. Who's calling? What are you asking about? My funding? Okay, hang on. I'm a first-time home buyer. Can you please just tell me exactly what I need to know as far as, is there a deadline to this request right now? Do I need to set a date for this? And is there any financial part that I need to know? Help me out as best you can. That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
They will go, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You know what? This is something that actually is due in 24 hours. Or, no, you've got till next week to do this. We're just getting ahead of the game. But use that sentence.
Totally.
So that's a killer tip. And I love the mindset shift too of you are the boss. Ask questions.
Yeah. I had dumb questions like, is this the underwriting thing that we're supposed to be doing now? Are we in the 30-day period, or where are we at in that whole 30 days? It's because you hear these things throughout the podcast and you really don't know. I think listening to your A through Z episodes were very helpful, because it at least gets you some of the vocabulary. It at least gets you there. But unless you're a pro at this, you're going to be like, oh, I remember learning about this, but what is that again? Sorry, who, and just ask it. Really, they're not going to laugh at you. They're there for you, and you don't want to get any of this wrong, right? This is a very serious transaction. As much as your unicorn lender and everything, and positivity of we can do this and everything, there's still an element of serious transaction on this, and there's no reason to fidget your numbers a little bit of I don't drink coffee every day. It's be honest with them. This is my scenario. I don't want to change it very much. What do we need to do to make this happen? Okay, what is your service?
Yeah. Don't fudge your numbers like you do with your doctor at your physical. Serge, by the way, that's easy for you to say under 30. Wait till you're my age and your doctor's grilling you super hard. Such tremendous advice. I mean, and it's true. The A to Z will get you there, but it's over 20 episodes. It's a lot. And you're not going to be expected to remember it. But I tell you what, homies, if you go back, especially if you're looking to buy in a new area, but even if you're just trying to figure out what to do with your mindset, what to do with potential job change, and then that last little nugget, on how to get through the under contract portion. Sergio had talked about it as escrow. It's escrow in some places. It's under contract in some places. It's with a lawyer in some places. See why you can't get this from Google? It's different everywhere, man. And the last piece that I will, again, just love the keeping the open mind. If you run out of inventory and you think we're just going to wait for new homes, take a little time. If you've got the right real estate team, open it up a little bit. You could hate them all. They could all walk in and be Sergio fixers, and Ali's like, no way, Captain Handyman, you're going to have to quit your job. Guys, Bob and Bobette, stars of the How to Buy a Home podcast. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Shout out to JT too.
Yes.
I loved your story, man.
Hey, Sergio and Ali, this is JT listening to you from the editing room. Just wanted to say you are very, very welcome. And I'm touched that sharing my story helped you guys feel like this was a good fit for you. Seriously, all the congratulations in the world. Being out on the lake sounds awesome. Having your own place sounds incredible. You guys did it. Celebrate that. I am so, so happy to be even a tiny little speck of the part of your journey to get here. But seriously, you guys put in the work. Celebrate that. I'm so happy for you. All right. Back to you, David. And I'm sure you're about to say something really nice about me because you love me. Right, buddy?
I forgot. I was so busy writing notes. I forgot that after months and weeks of texts and conversations that you told me the thing that pushed you over the top was listening to JT when he hijacked my podcast and he did an episode. So once again, screw you, Bob.
Thank you.
Did you really think I was going to let Bob and Bobette go and we weren't going to talk after I turned off the microphone and come up with another, oh my God, we should have said this on the podcast moment? Sergio, tell me what you just said about Chris, your unicorn realtor, changing your mindset on real estate as a whole.
I mean, part of your spiel, or recommendations and how you view a home is you're diversifying your portfolio. You're looking at it as a way of, having a different source of assets, right? And we originally were thinking, okay, we can get this house and then we can bump over to a bigger one and then we can bump over to a bigger one. We can sell it. But our realtor is so forward thinking, so much looking forward to our financial success because there's enough wealth for all of us that he is pushing for us to let's start saving now and let's get you a second property so that instead of needing to sell this first one that you got, even though it's not in the best school district, it doesn't tick all of the boxes that you want, it will be appropriate and applicable for a renter. And so why not just set this house up in a manner that you can start renting it out to people and then you move on to a different house. Let's get you away from the thought process of just needing to scale up, which is totally appropriate, but really let's get back and applying those rich dad, poor dad principles.
Yeah.
And seeing how we can use real estate, not just as a way of diversifying the portfolio, but really as an investment beyond just your one house as a way of stepping up to the next one. How can you look at this as passive income in 3-5 years? And that is a big key difference of what a unicorn realtor does. One will just get you inside the door. The next one is looking for your business for the next home or for the next major purchase or for everything. I mean, if we needed a painter and I just hit up my realtor and I said, do you have a good painter? Here's the painter. Everything. He is very knowledgeable. He left the door wide open for us to be able to hit him up for any kind of query that we have on the home buying process.
Or just house-related things later on down the line if we need some kind of professional to help do work on the house, whatever we need. I think, the other thing that Chris afforded us was kind of like took off some of that pressure of you're going to be in this house for 30 years. Like, that's scary. I'm not even 30 yet. I don't know what 30 years looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Right in the chest. So I think by him kind of helping us change our mindset in that way as well, it took off some of the pressure. Hey, this house has, I would say, 90% of our wants and needs, which for a first-time home, I would say that's pretty awesome. But I don't really care because, like, perhaps we're not going to be here for 30 years. And we are able to start thinking ahead like that.
Can I tell you that the reason, so you come in and your unicorn realtor, Chris, it has been an investor in the past. And his original story is one of the old podcasts. JT, find it and put it in the show notes because his story is amazing. He was in college and he was the one who paid the rent. And the landlord called and said they're selling. And he's like, hey, maybe I can buy it. So he called his dad. He bought the house, didn't tell his roommates, and kept collecting rent checks from them. I love that story. And my other realtor in Austin, because there are only 2 unicorns I've got out there, he's helped my friends buy investment property going back as far as like 18 years. And what's so interesting is, Sergio, you came to me and said, yeah, you're kind of skeptical about stuff. And you were surprised that, some random cringy old dude would call you back and would answer your questions. It's weird. And you're right to be skeptical and be guarded. Trust but verify. Verify first, then trust. I just want to tell the skeptic, a realtor who's talking to you about those options when you buy a home, they teach classes to real estate people to get a first-time home buyer into a home as soon as you can and just get them whatever you want. And then don't worry, they're going to call you in 3 or 4 years when they outgrow it. And then you get 2 sales because you get to sell their home and help them buy the move up. So by Chris understanding your situation and your unicorn giving you that, he's costing you money down the long run because you're not going to ask him to sell this place.
Right.
You're going to, and you said you already said he's your Google. You're going to go to him for anything. But it's when you're working with someone who truly has your best interest at heart, that mindset shift is not just for this one moment. It's for everything, including making sure you use the right painter so that you retain value and, potentially looking at being a renter down the line. And nothing makes me happier because Sergio, here you are saying 4 years ago, you had no clue about this. And bro, now you own a house and you're like, yeah, we're going to keep this first one and probably rent it out before we go do our next thing.
Oh, man. No, yeah.
You are no imposter, buddy. You are no imposter.
Right. And I wish I didn't sound like an ad for you or anything like that, David. But yes, like if you're listening, like please, David's legit. He helps. He helped us so much by finding us this unicorn realtor and just being that voice, being an extra resource. I'm a skeptic. I don't think people are actually out there trying to do this, right? But not once did I see a single invoice from David. I didn't see a single cent come out of my bank account go to him. It was legitimately a person that wants to help you. And he did exactly that. And we found Chris through you, David, and Chris has our business for life. Any person that I have a friend that is trying to purchase a home, refer them to your podcast. If they're moving to Austin, I'm referring them to Chris. There's no reason why I wouldn't. And that is the type of person that you want to be able to have on your team, right? How neat is it to have a person that you can refer in whatever circumstances because they do not lead you astray? It's rare in these days, unfortunately, but it is legit here. So please, if you're thinking about hitting them up, do so because you may be in the position that we're in.
And just like all the decisions that you guys made, including opening up your search a little bit just in case. If you feel like you've hit a stop sign, try us out. It's free.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can meet with a unicorn and that's free and you can decide not to hire them. Mm-hmm. That's the point. Like, that's the reason why it made sense for me to do it this way because some people made me believe that with a microphone and my whack-ass personality, I could get people to listen. And then you add on top of that the fact that I've been doing this a long time. I just know the right people. I don't do a lot. I just teach you guys what to do. And then I introduce you to people who are doing this at the highest level.
Those people aren't charging you extra. I forget what the typical, is it 3% that you
Yeah. It's dropping down to about 2.7, 2.5. They don't charge you anymore. That's the thing I tell people all the time. It's like if you get arrested for something If you want to hire the celebrity lawyer, they're 10 grand an hour or, maybe 5,000 an hour or whatever. And your regular lawyers are $400, $500 an hour. But you can get the most expensive service for the same price because usually the seller pays for it.
And that was our situation here is the seller paid for it. We didn't see any, it sounds like a gimmick. I know it does because I still don't believe it, but really there's nothing that came out of my pocket for neither David nor Chris nor anybody that I know of, right? It was just my closing costs. And you have all of your documents. You will get those papers and you will see that there's no funky transaction. There's no this asterisk of $500 going there or whatever. It's all straight.
Not like my damn cell phone bill, right?
Yeah.
Where there's
Nobody opened the tipping app on us at the end. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's a great idea. Now that I think about it, how can my podcast at the end of it, the phone just goes, whoop, did you enjoy the podcast? 5%, 10%.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I love it. Well, I now have to officially end this because grand total we're over an hour, but I really do appreciate that. And if you do really want to understand how the unicorn, JT, again, I don't have the list in front of me, so you got to put how a unicorn works episode in there.
That would be episode 275. That's the unicorn disclosure episode. It explains all about how the unicorn referral system works that we've been talking about here. It starts exactly at 12 minutes into that episode. The beginning is a market update, but you're going to want to go to 12 minutes exactly, and that starts the whole explanation. And while you're chilling around the late 270s, you can go forward one episode to 276 and check out the original Bob and Bob episode. Now you know that they're Sergio and Ali, but that was the original episode where their question was told anonymously, and that's where David broke down their initial situation. If you're also interested, you can go back one episode and go to 274. That is the episode that Bob and Bobette, aka Sergio and Ali, listened to that I did actually about not being able to buy a house. Confused, right? I mean, I listen to this podcast all the time. So if you're interested, you can go check that out. Yeah, apparently that was just better than all the rest of the 273 episodes David had done up until that point. I mean, I might be biased, but anyway. There you go. Back to you one more time, David.
Amazing story. And hey, if you want to hear more incredible stories like this, you can go to howtobuyahome.com and look for the episode guide. There's over 100 real life stories from real people who did it. You can get it straight from the homeowners' mouths. The education here, it's legit. And we're going to bring home buying power back to the people. We'll put the link to that episode guide in the show notes. Hey, if you're brand new to the show, start at episode 400. That's the first 10 steps for every first-time home buyer. While you're trolling around on the internet, make sure you look at How to Buy a Home on social media. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok, and we got a YouTube channel as well. And hey, if you're learning from this podcast, please help us out. We want as many people as we can to hear this. Drop a review on Apple or Spotify. Write something down there, not just 5 stars, because that really helps get the show out there. Just take 90 seconds, write a little something, and you'll be helping renters out there find their options. I'm going to keep bringing you all the education that you need. And when you're ready to write your own story, like Bob and Bobette / Sergio and Ali, then go to howtobuyahome.com and you can ask for your local specialized first-time homebuyer team. Get your unicorn because you can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyahome.com to get started.